Hello everyone. Alright, so I've been editing video, but I've got, I need to do some painting. So I'm going to get started on another piece. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing yet, so maybe you can help me decide. I have been looking at my work from the last little while, and decided that I wanted to change up a few things. So here are a few of the most recent pieces that I've been working on. So for the last while I had been working on increasingly large pieces. Well, let me just find a, yeah, I'm gonna link this, share live stream. Why is it? No! Okay, I need to edit this. Apparently I've still got different, sorry. Let us edit this. Edit this. Title. Edit. Yeah, I need to download, wait 1 moment. Down. Oh boy, okay, where is my... Live? Yeah, let's change that, whoops. Change this to something else. Hello, welcome. Changing cover page, cover image, yeah, hi. There you are. I'm adjusting and restringing my nephew's guitar while I watch. Cool. Awesome. Yes, welcome. Yeah, I was editing video earlier, but I really need to do some more painting. I've been making a point of actually focusing on painting and not just all the other stuff. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I need to reset, and part of it is I've been sort of thinking about my approach to painting and selling paintings and career stuff. And for the last little while I was moving from like little spot illustrations to more and more developed pieces, larger, and that is something that I'm really enjoying, but also it can get a little high pressure to always be painting really huge pieces, so I've decided to sort of bridge the gap a little bit and make some pieces that are like finished, developed pieces with a lot of complex detail, but also like packed into a smaller, more portable, less daunting format, which hopefully will also have a somewhat less daunting price tag attached and allow me to produce a little bit more in terms of like actual volume of work, which is important because I've got a whole bunch of different things coming up and I can't, if I'm too soaked into giant pieces, I'm not producing enough. Also, if I'm juggling my time too much and trying to do something completely different on live streams and trying to do videos where I have, a third kind of pieces, I just need to focus a little bit. and I was noticing that there's a little bit of, I guess, a style emerging more so than previous pieces. Like there was already a recognizable, like you can usually tell when it's my work versus, you know, some other artist's work. But these are the last two pieces that I completed. And hopefully you can see we can't quite get the whole of this one into frame, but I can get most of it. Maybe if I zoom out just a little. Is that here? La la la, la la. Yeah, there we go. Zoom out a little bit more. So there's one, and there's the other one. And these have been hanging over beside my desk. Usually I don't like having too much of my own work hanging over me, but this has been an interesting thing to look at because they are very different subject matter and they're very different from my other work, but they also have some very striking similarities. And so I've been thinking about doing some more of these like really detailed, intricate pieces, but just a little bit smaller than the like 20 by 30 full sheet or larger type things that I've been trying to do some of recently and that I think have got me a little bit lost. And then the last thing is, so these two are on ampersand aquaboard, which I'm sure actually also contributes to them having a little bit of a similar feel to them, is that's a very different surface than my usual. But I did want to sort of bring up underneath this one, I have what I'm currently, piece I've been sort of picking at for the last little while, and I think there's a similar sort of thing happening. So I like what's going on with my work where there's a little bit more of a voice coming through, where I'm really sort of leaning into a lot of these intricate patterns, a lot of really neat, bright details, these really layered compositions, and really embracing like the messy, sort of complicated nature of our environment. Yeah. So I, don't often love looking at my own work, but I think that there's something interesting there that I want to explore. And I think the way to do it, to really get a feel for it, is to do a few more smaller pieces, like, I mean, not necessarily tiny. I am starting something that is 16 by 20 over across the room. So some of the things are a little bit bigger, but also keep working on some really teeny pieces like this 6 by 6. So I want to do a few more 6 by 6s. I think I might do a few more things on aquaboard, to see if that's maybe part of what's sort of creating this particular voice. But like not necessarily. This is on panel, but it's paper panel. So this is Arches paper, I think, is on this panel. Potentially. It's either Arches or Fabriano. I'm not entirely sure because some of the panels I had made and some of them are from Raymar. So it's either Arches or Fabriano. Anyway, so this is a paper panel, so it is a different surface than these guys, but I still feel like there's a little bit of that like really bright poppy, but layered thing going on. This one's not finished, but it's getting there. And then I have other stuff on the go as well. So today I wanted to work on something smaller, and two options. I can either start another one of these little 6x6 ampersand panels that I've got, or I've got this paper block, and then I'll have to figure out mounting it later, but people were curious about mounting paper to panel, and this is the sort of smallish thing that I can absolutely do. For larger panels, I am always just gonna send it off to a preparator and let them deal with the mess and risk of that. But in either case, so this is 12 by 23 centimeters, so about 4.5 by 9 inches. And this is a little square. I've got some reference photos over on my Discord, and I will work on one of them. But before I do, if people want to go over to Discord and check out those reference images, I'm just going to do some little thumbnail sketches before I start anything. Yeah. I'm also going to link this over on Discord, so maybe I can get some more viewers. Ta-da! Okay, here, general. So, whatever, we're gonna leave this be because I actually have stuff that I want to do on that page. I will link this a few other places. La 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 la. And link that. Here we go. All right. Bippity bop. Where'd that go? All right. So that's that thing, this thing, da-dee-da-dee-da. Yeah, and then I need to check out my references and see about what I want to do composition wise. I have colored pencils that I use for this. So, oh shoot, I was gonna say, I mentioned this in my last video, but no, I mentioned this in the video that I haven't released yet, that I'm currently editing, that is very top of my mind. I don't like doing finished illustrations with colored pencils, but I have gotten to the point where I do use colored pencils regularly. I use them for thumbnail sketches, so I keep a very limited selection, because I don't need lots of colors to do any kind of sketching. I just need a few basics. And so here's some colors, and I'm gonna just take a quick look. Do you have Stephen, you've looked at the references over on Discord? Sorry, I'm kind of scattered. You've seen my references over on Discord. do you have thoughts, preferences, which of the two sets? So I'm considering either I'll do the ash trunk with the little, they're false turkey tails, I think. The false turkey tail mushrooms. Either I'll do that on this more square piece, or I'll do a taller tree trunk sort of composition on this format. Does anyone have thoughts on which I should focus on? Because I am quite flexible, really. Also, again, apologies for the... like the pattern of the top one. Okay, well, eventually I'm probably going to do both things, but yeah, I'm happy to start focusing on that first. So that's probably going to be this square, so then I just need to figure out a square composition. And I think that's the other thing that I'm really sort of, I'm coming back to being like present with life. La, la, la. Yeah, okay, so if I do a square sort of composition for this one, so I guess if we have here, like, I like this view where I've got sort of the top of it, I've got some more mossy things. Maybe I'll put some more mossy things over here. Just trying to divide out this composition a little. Ta-da! So I think I'm gonna do the log that's lying down. And I'm trying to, there's like a bunch of different angles of it. Lots. Like if I have some of the, maybe I have a third, like where do I get my, more of that green? Maybe the green gets, yeah, maybe it's in here and then I get like a pop of sort of mossy green over here and something more mossy green somewhere. Okay, maybe I should stop worrying about that and start worrying about basic color composition. So I feel like where a lot of my paintings have lacked is in composition. We're like pretty good at painting things that are an accurate, you know, high quality painting of the object. You know, one might debate whether my obsession with crusty branches is, I don't know, aesthetically appealing, but I think I do a pretty decent job of making things look interesting and what have you. But my composition sometimes sucks. That's just really not something that I really have learned much about or focused much on, and I think that's where I can really improve. And part of the issue is that I jumped straight from like, here's a little blob in the middle of a small page to, hey, I'm gonna paint gigantic things, and with gigantic things, like, the composition is definitely more important. But it's this whole extra overwhelming challenge on top of yeah, okay, so maybe that's it. Maybe I just need to... No, you know what? I'm trying to do too much. These things are actually much. That's my issue, is that this is too big. I'm too zoomed out. Okay, what if I zoom in further? Can I... If I take this and I zoom in, zoom, zoom, zoom. Yeah, zoom in. Aha. What if I zoom in on that structure there? And I have some little thready things here. I have some turkey tail type stuff here. Yeah, okay, so then I'll have like a bit of this thing and then a bit of... Sorry, I know that I'm just sort of muttering to myself. I apologize for this very confused narration. Hello, hello. Yes, so I definitely have done that. I have actually quite a few paintings that I did really early on where I kind of plopped one or two things down on a piece of paper and then later decided that I didn't want that, and cut it out. And so, for example, I still have this little piece sitting around. I need to switch out the frame because this IKEA frame is all stained and yucky, but I do like the little shadow box. But this tiny little painting, it was originally part of a larger piece that had like another crystal on it. And for some reason I did a bunch of these things where like I had honestly really bad compositions where I had two things on a page. There was no motion, there was no whatever. It was just like, oh, here's two things, I'm gonna paint them. And two things is always a complicated composition to get right. It just never worked out really well. But I still had, I mean, very much this, like, I was focusing on skills, how to paint objects well, how to... And very much, like, composition was a very back of my mind thing. Like, I didn't really have... Oi, what is all of this? Didn't really have much knowledge of what I was doing. So... That's something that, you know, I'm coming around to now. Like, no, that's what's really lacking. Like, I can paint things well, but nobody wants... Hi! Hello. Hi. Are you contributing to my live stream? Yes. I know. You want walkies. They're not happening right now. Maybe later. Ember, later we go big walkies. We're going to Toronto later. Yeah, later we do big walkies, okay? Ember, do big walkies later? Ember, do big walkies later? Okay, go bye-bye. Anyway, yeah, because my paintings are so sort of involved, there's a lot of like work that goes in. It's a bit of a waste to the degree to which I was just like not even thinking about, you know, how this will look, how people will interact with it as a whole composition. And a lot of my paintings were just like, here's an object in the middle of the page, or worse, here's two objects in the middle of a page. And yeah, sometimes the way I fixed that was by erasing, by cutting out one of the objects. And there's stuff that I changed later on, and like, you know, that's one way to do things. And certainly, Stephen, I know with you, like a lot of your paintings are like really, they're quick and they're sort of layered, and so that is a, you know, a way to develop composition. And I think just by doing that, just by trying a bunch of different things, you are going to develop you know, some sense of like how you build a painting and what works for you and what doesn't. But I'm not producing, I'm not producing at that volume, but I did a year where I was doing a daily leaf, painting a leaf every day, and that was actually also part of the problem, part of the thing that I noticed, and what got me thinking about compositions, even though I wasn't really in a place to really work on much for a few years in there. But I did this daily leaf project in 2018. And, sorry. This is still too zoomed out, so I do want it to be more or less site size, I guess. I'm not being obsessive about it, like it may end up being a little bit larger or smaller than real size, than site size. Yeah, I think I am still making this too small. Okay, let's try this again. If I have this and I just here, I rotate it a little. I'm beginning to think I didn't take my stimulants this morning because I am so all over the place. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go take my meds. And back. Okay. This little sketchbook has been a lifesaver. It's tiny. It's just got a few, like I'm mostly just using it for thumbnails. I've been doing thumbnails for ages, but having a sketchbook that's just like, I can carry this around trivially. This is the third time that I'm playing with this, but I taped this one because the last two I ended up just getting shredded, and I ended up throwing out. They didn't have anything terribly valuable in them, so I cut out a couple of things and then tossed out the rest after the cover got all shredded from getting carried around everywhere. But this one, I ended up taping the cover, and yeah, it's been really handy. I really like having just this little thing. I can carry it, do all kinds of little sketches, low pressure, and it's great for thumbnails. So basically just where I throw a bunch of garbage sketches and thumbnails. All right. Let's see. Where did I put? In here. Okay. So if I have this, and I have this sort of rounded thing right over here. Yeah, let's make that rounded thing sort of that rounded shape right over here. This one, this one, this one, sort of like this. And then I do here, and yeah, maybe like more like that. And then I have some bright green right here, and then I can have some more darker green over here, and some more faded green over there. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. And I've got light coming in from here. Well, that is interesting. Do I want to mirror this? So I more frequently have my light coming in from the other side. Maybe I want to mirror that. Okay. Maybe I want to mirror that. Yeah, what if I do the other way? No, maybe I'll just, yeah, okay. So what I'm debating right now is I frequently choose to have my light come in from the left. And that's not where the light is coming in from on this reference, which seems like a minor thing, but I feel like it might just add an extra puzzle. But I think this is a small enough piece that this is a good place to play with that puzzle. it's a small enough piece, and I guess because this is ampersand aqua board, it's relatively easy actually to scrape out highlights and stuff. So if I get a bit confused in my lighting, I can just change that up. I'm wondering how that is going to affect how it shows in a gallery, because you know what? Also not something I'm going to worry about. All right, cool. So then there's this, there's gonna be this thing. And then if I take just a little bit of color and I add just a bit like that, a little bit. So this is right, okay, so that it's going to be light across here, and then I can make this darker, make this sort of middling, make this part darker. Okay, what if I move that whole thing up again? Da, 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 da. Here. Right, like what if I put this whole thing over here, put this whole thing right here. We're gonna have some bright green right in that section. We'll go throw this here. Bright, bright, bright green. And then it's gonna have a little bit more shadow. Da, 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 da. Then I can have some sort of more moderate stuff, some dark, dark, dark. And then like the darkest things are gonna be right in the mushrooms in here. And then it's going to be really light, like there's going to be and then there's going to be like a little bit of green across here, a little bit of green in here. But it's going to be muted. We're going to embrace some brighter, play up the contrast here. Okay, and then this is just gonna be okay. All right, somewhere in between there. All right, cool. I think I've got my plan. So take this, throw this over here, and I get started on this guy. So here I want to very quickly, I put my sharpener. I did have a sharpener here for once in my life. There it is. Okay. Okay, cool. That's about enough underdrawing to tell me what I want to do. And then I'm going to start blocking in my main shapes. I liked it better without the bottom left chunk. Yeah, so I did end up shifting to more of like having the... Okay, I'm gonna go over on Discord and point out which... no, I'm gonna do this with my phone, one moment. Trying to figure out how best to share things. Because I don't have screen sharing set up and don't want to figure out how to do that right now. But here. So what I am doing, what I'm working with, this is probably kind of confusing. This reference photo, I am zooming in sort of on this area, but in a square. And so what's happening here is I have this sort of area here. Well, maybe I should move this back a little. Maybe I should move this back a little. Do I have an eraser handy? Do I want an eraser? Maybe I don't even want an eraser. Maybe this can just be a graphite-y mess because because it's all going to get painted over anyway, and it's all just going to get pushed around with this being clay. Maybe I'll get some sandpaper. Oh, I've been wondering how this would work if I sanded this down. Can you tell I hadn't had my meds? I'm gonna get a little bit more on top of things soon, I'm sure. It is pretty clear to me that I just did not. I got pulled out when I was about to take my meds. Ember was really excited because my neighbor who's been traveling is back, and she spotted her outside, and Ember desperately wanted to go outside and talk to her, and so Ember had a whole moment there. Okay, so if I just have this whole thing like this, and these, yeah, and then this, yeah, okay, and then the bright green section ends up sort of here. Maybe we even move that a little bit further so it's the bottom. Yeah, because then that makes that the bottom. Indeed. Okay. Okay. So many thoughts. So many thoughts. Okay. Welcome to my brain. I make really detailed artwork eventually through just the chaos. The constant chaos that I create. Yeah, okay. If I just put this here, and if I have, like, it's gonna be about there and there, and so if I center my little there. Okay. All right. I think I've got it. Paint. So first, I'm gonna take some of this, and just, well, that's messy. Can you tell that I have a real neat put together process for making my neat put together paintings? We're just gonna throw a bunch of paint down there, and I get a little bit of this there and here. So I am just putting a whole bunch of pigment down. The neat thing about Aquaboard is that it's really, really easy to lift off and scrape away and stuff. So I'm coming to really embrace that, and yeah. The not so neat thing about Aquaboard is that it's made by Ampersand, which is an American company, so I haven't bought any Aquaboard in a while. And while I'm enjoying playing with it, I am a little bit concerned that I don't actually want to get too dependent on this stuff. But such is life. How long have I been painting with watercolor? About a decade? About 10 years, yeah. So, I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the painting, but I recently finished 2 other paintings that are watercolor on Aquaboard that have been sitting in my studio for a little while. That seem to be, I don't know, like, they're not wildly different from stuff that I was doing before, but they definitely have their own flavor, and I feel like there's a little bit of a voice there that I want to explore a little bit more. That's the first one. This is the second one. And those are 2 things that I finished up fairly recently. So I'm playing with this painting a little bit, yeah, just seeing what's there, seeing what, whether this is something, this particular combo is something that I'm going to want to do more of. Okay, just found a plate because I was finding it pretty annoying to mix on my tin. I'm also actually going to remove this. Yeah, I'll do that later. Yeah. But yeah, so I growing up, I wanted to be an artist, but I mostly just did, you know, a little bit of this and that, the regular art classes, experimented with a bunch of things, but mostly drawing, colored pencil, and then about 10 years ago, I quit my, before I quit my engineering job, I started sort of seriously looking at building up art career. Started doing some natural science illustration type stuff, like classes. Like, I wasn't really selling at first. That was about 10 years ago. And a couple years later, I quit my engineering job and this has been my only thing ever since. I went in that first like 6 months or so that I was still working, but I was taking art pretty seriously. I was like, this was my, I was moving out of engineering. That was my goal. I wanted to experiment with watercolor, but my skills weren't quite there. So I did a bunch more practice, and I got pretty quickly, I got to the point where like I wasn't, it was clear that I needed more practice on hand control and what have you, but pretty quickly when I started with watercolor, it was like, okay, this is my future, this is where I want to be. And I really do, I love watercolor. I love how flexible it is. I love playing with pigment properties. I love how easy it is to clean up. I experimented with oil a few weeks ago, and I've still got oil stuff to clean up from that one oil painting experience. Watercolor is super easy with the cleanup, with the what's involved there. So yeah, watercolor is a lifelong love for me, but I am definitely sorry, what was I saying? ADHD. Okay, I need to block off my deepest shadows. I need to go here, grab some deep dark green, and I'm gonna go here and take that, get some more of this purpley color. I think I have too much of the green. This is gonna have to be some other shade. We're gonna bounce this up, but then we're gonna come in here and just there's that. So yeah, I've been doing watercolor for about 10 years. I've also been like pursuing art professionally for about 10 years. And watercolor is my main medium. I do experiment with other stuff regularly. I think it's important to stretch beyond what your comfort zone, and not get too complacent. But yes. Okay, and then I'm gonna take some more of this. I think I might have some opera pink down in here, and I'm just not worried about it, even though this is a professional finish painting, because I am not depending on that bright color at all. Although I am playing up some of the more bright oranges and magentas in some of the background foliage that I've got. Yeah, I'm gonna let there be some of this. Actually, do I even want that? Maybe I'll just No, I'm just not gonna worry about it. It's not gonna be there. Okay. I'm gonna do some very... I'm gonna leave a gap here so that this doesn't bleed, but I will paint this in later. Okay. A few weeks ago I did this thing where I made some air dry clay handholds. Really, they want to be varnished because they get kind of slick and gross when exposed to water. It's bound to happen when you're working in watercolor. So what I'm doing here is I am gonna do a little bit more developing of this background, but I just want there to be a really sort of loose color because I do want it to be fairly like in the foreground. I'm probably going to refine all the way to like lifting out, you know, needle highlights and like with a little literal needle and ink with like, and again, fine ink lines. But in the background, I will get some of this leaf litter on the forest floor, but I do want that to be much less developed, so I am just letting this be. Oh boy, that yellow really does wanna go, doesn't it? Okay, well, we can play with some of that, and then we can throw some more here and there and there and yeah. Okay, I will leave that be for now. And yes, this is a mess. That is fine. It won't be a mess when I'm done. Okay, and then we can get back to these little turkey tails. Turkey tails, turkey tails. Oh, this is interesting. Y'all have little... You all have little crowns. I've got Stephen and Raina both have little crowns. I'm not sure if this is based on like engagement in this chat or how long you've been watching this video or whether it's more broadly from the channel. But yeah, you have little crowns. You're number 1 and number 2. Isn't that cool? My top fans. And so then I do need to lift out, and so this is where it's kind of interesting. This should be dry by now. In here, we're gonna lift out here, and you can see how easily this stuff lifts off of this panel. And the thing is, once you start getting used to this, once you start getting used to working this way, it's hard to give up, man. Like the fact that I can just keep on doing that, the fact that then I can, after the fact, I can go and edit this, you know, I can work this back out to fine detail, and then I can apply oil wax on top of it, and then it's permanent and it doesn't need glass, it's waterproof. This is dangerous, because I'm gonna work on paper, right? Sometimes. But the ability to have this much freedom, this is something that people who aren't watercolor artists sometimes complain about watercolor, is that, you know, it's kind of a one-way street in many ways, especially if you're using staining pigments, where once you've painted an area, you can't really remove it unless you're using something like an ampersand panel. And so unfortunately I don't know if there's I can't really think of many other alternatives to these panels, and this is made by one company. Now it is it's a clay surface, so theoretically one could you know, make it or find a different alternative. It's the texture of the clay, the whatever, it allows watercolor to be painted on, but removes fairly easily. I've been seeing the crowns for a week or two. Ah, neat. I have not been... I guess I haven't been really paying too much attention to lives. I used to tune into a lot of different live streams, other artists, and it was a nice way of, you know, a thing to do while working, and I haven't really done that as much lately. I'm also trying to figure out what to do with my own live stream, because I have in the past been more reliable about, oh, well, I live stream on Fridays. And I'm not entirely convinced that I'm up to maintaining that long term. Let's see, can I get... I want deeper, plummier purple. So I'm playing up some of the purples in here. So, I'm also not sure if Fridays are going to work out for me long term, because I have been increasingly back and forth to Toronto for some family care and personal reasons. It is likely that in the next little while I'll end up spending a good bit of time there, like actually living there for a little bit. And that's frequently been for me. Recently, it's been a weekend trip thing. So if you're not familiar, I live in Kitchener-Waterloo, which is about 100 kilometers, 60 miles from the nearest big city. And my family's there, and there's some better medical care there, as well as some family members who need some help, some support, some medical care, so I've been going back and forth, mostly recently just helping my aunt with her garden, but as in the next little while it may end up coming up even more frequently. And that's made it a little bit difficult recently to commit to a Friday live stream, because that's really one of the more convenient times for me to be heading out. Like, I'm still working primarily from home, haven't really set up a workspace there, but I'm traveling some weekends, and that is likely to happen more in the midterm future. So I'm not entirely sure how that's going to impact live streams for a bunch of reasons. I'm not entirely sure that regularly scheduled live streams are a thing that I can really commit to, but we'll try to do some from time to time. What's that? It's a thing on my... Really what I meant to do. Okay. looking a little, sorry, my lighting seems to be a little odd. Maybe this is better. What if sorry. I'm gonna give you a little bit more blue light. And I need to, sorry, move this over to where I can see this and the chat at the same time. And then I can just remove that whole thing. There we go. Okay. Let's see, I'm just gonna put a little bit more of a base tone here, just a little bit of a yellow base, so that those edges aren't stark white, and then I can scrape them away if I do want them stark white. All right, chat. Has anyone used what was I about to say? Watercolor ground much? Because my experience with the stuff has been very limited. But I am now considering whether that's something that I want to maybe experiment a little bit more with. Because I got into experimenting with aquaboard that I'd previously brushed off as, you know, not really my thing. And unfortunately I did that right at the same time that I don't really want to buy from them. So I'm in Canada, and I've been pretty good about just not buying American. It's pretty clear with current trade relations and human rights violations that's just, you know, I would rather focus on supporting Canadian companies or more reliable trading partners. But Canadian companies, unfortunately, ampersand is American. There's no real other alternative. As far as like watercolor primed clay panels. Now I believe that it is just a clay surface that's got a little bit more tooth to it, but I don't know how I would create a clay surface with the right amount of tooth. I have questioned whether, given that I don't really like bumpy surfaces, whether I might want to sand down the tooth a little bit anyway. Not to the point, like I've tried clay board and that's too smooth, like the paint just sort of skates on it. Also that's still an ampersand panel, so it doesn't really help me, but there are other things like it. But I don't know how I would go about making a clay surface. However, there is the option of watercolor ground that I could apply to various panels, and I question whether that might have some of the same like lifting, scrapable if I put enough of a layer down surface that I am coming to really love with this. So I'd love to hear from people who have a little bit more experience playing with watercolor ground. Okay, I need to go washroom. I'll be right back. Tell me about your experiences with watercolor ground if you have any. today I'm going to Toronto, partially to visit family, partially for my family commitments, but partially I'm going to go to the Toronto Outdoor Art Fair, which for the past couple of years I've been looking at maybe applying to. Feel like I need to move past like community art fairs, which are really hard on me, and I don't think there's really enough of a, it's not that there isn't a market of people who might buy my work here, they're just not going to the community art fairs with that mindset. So I need to start selling my work in places where people are buying artwork, where they're buying original paintings and prints at a price that is reflective of the work and skill that I put into my work. Because I'm not gonna sell a piece that took 12 hours for $80. I do have some sense of self-worth and some need to pay my bills. So I've been looking at signing up for things like the Toronto Outdoor Art Fair, where there's a more like art buyer market, and really shift my online presence towards more of my prints and more of my offerings that are actually gonna support me. And away from, I had been focused on a lot of like illustration commissions, and that is fine. I'm also doing a lot more like grant type projects, which is again more like exhibition paintings rather than little one-off illustrations. So this is more interesting stuff, but I need to sort of do some market research. So I'm looking forward to going to an art fair where there's people selling lovely, lovely artwork and seeing what my market is like. It's like I don't really consider other artists to be competition. I don't think that's really how the art world works. At some level maybe they are, but it's not really. But I do want to see, what the displays are like, what the how varying, like how things are priced for representational pieces, watercolors, sort of get a sense of like, I've been told that this is the place, that's the local market that I should really be trying to hit. I think that's likely true, but I don't really know. So I'm looking forward to that. Wish I could stay to watch the whole thing. I keep catching bits. Looking great. Love seeing an artist work. No problem. Thanks for dropping in. Very happy to see you. I do leave these up, so if you want to rewatch, that's totally cool. I get that live streams lose a little on rewatch, even if you're not really bumping into the chat all that often, even if whatever. But yeah, I'm definitely happy to be here for whatever level of involvement you're here for. Always nice to see people. And share with other art and nature lovers. I want a little bit more blue, I guess. Blue. Yeah, let's get some more of that manganese. You know what? I think I'm gonna, yeah, we're gonna push that out a little. So again, you can see this stuff just lifts right off. And so this is not a great surface if you're gonna do a bunch of like wet washes on top of each other, but it's great for one-time like a one-time very wet wash like this, where I just like let it play around and mix. And it's also pretty great if you do a somewhat drier technique. So my washes tend to be pretty dry, especially in upper layers. So I tend to put down a lot of liquid on my first layer, but those tend to be a little bit of a lighter wash in most places. I will block out some shadows pretty early with quite a bit of water, but then I work in fairly dry layers on top of that. So this surface is great as long as you're not putting a whole bunch of wet washes on top of each other. It will just lift right off. That can be nice if you are doing something that's more akin to like an oil painting type technique, where you're scraping things away and sort of like sculpting in the shapes, where you put in a shadow and then you like take a rag and lift out a highlight type of thing. You can do that, which you wouldn't usually be able to do with watercolor the same way. This surface does allow that sort of technique. But it does, yeah, it's very, very re-wettable and liftable. So that's just something to be aware of if you're working with this stuff. A few weeks ago, on live stream actually, I painted this brain in oil paint, which again, like I'm primarily a watercolor painter, so, you know, don't take my... Can I zoom out further? Yeah, there we go. So I'm not an oil painter, don't take my oil painting advice. This was just me experimenting. I really enjoy oil painting, but man, the cleanup, the mess it creates. my studio has more oil mass than it does watercolor mass, and I paint with watercolor constantly, have been for the past 5 years in this studio. Oh, sorry, more than 5 years. Somebody asked me earlier, Rena asked me earlier how long I've been painting. I've been painting for 10 years, and seriously as a watercolor artist that whole time. But I didn't always live in this house, and when we bought this house 9 years ago, it was a few years before it was ready to really use as a studio. So I want to scrape away some highlight there. So again, I've got this little scraper brush. It's called a chisel blender, but you know, it might blend if you're a oil painter. It does not blend in watercolor. What it does is lift. It is a scraper brush if you're in watercolor. So some of this I will actually scrape out like with a knife, but some of it I'm just working with this little blender thing. But you can see it does lift out, so I can just add in some areas, which allows me to be more confident with throwing down like this kind of green area than I might be otherwise, because if I didn't put it in exactly the right place, my sketch was pretty rough here. My sketches are always pretty rough, but usually that means that my first blocking in layers are pretty light. Where I paint in definitely lighter and smaller than whatever the area is that this is eventually going to be. With this aqua board, I can throw in as much color as I want because it lifts right back out again. And I have been having lots of fun with that. It's been actually really quite something. Anyway, yes, I also realized that I've scheduled my live streams for, not that there's any day which works for everyone, but Friday afternoons where people are either at work, just getting off work, If you're in Europe, it's late night on Friday. There's all sorts of things that people are doing, preparing for the weekend. And for a while, it was like, yeah, well, you know, I'm at home all the time. I'm a shut-in, especially during COVID. I wasn't really going anywhere. And you know, I can make a live stream for other shut-ins for anyone who is just wanting to watch somebody paint watercolor on a Friday, because, you know, stuff. But it's been recently, like, I'm not sure if there's a better time. Like, I keep thinking of, oh, well, maybe if I did it earlier, maybe if I did whatever, maybe if I did a different day of the week. But I'm actually not convinced that that's really the issue. Alright, and then I'm going to extend this dark section now that I've got a little bit more color context and I know what I wanted, like how I want to shade the next bit, and start expanding what parts of my painting are painted in. I've been suddenly painting a lot faster, and I know, like, this is ridiculous. Coming from somebody who's painting, you know, teeny tiny little crusty branches. Like, yeah, right, you're so fast. And to be clear, like, I've always been a relatively fast, as botanical artists go, painter. I paint in relatively few layers. I don't spend forever obsessing over cross-hatching. I'm pretty confident about putting down paint. But I found, especially working on bigger pieces and more complex pieces and these more interesting compositions that I've been doing lately, that I tend to get a little bit stuck sometimes, and second guess myself. And I think that moving and doing a little bit more of these, they're still very complex, but these much smaller pieces is helping me to, like, regain that confidence of just when to put down. You know what, this can be up here. Just put that up there. Has helped me, yeah, build up some confidence with just putting down more pigment, more paint. I mean, it also helps that these things have been on aqua board, so I can put down a whole bunch of stuff and then take it back up again. So I'm putting some really granulating pigments down here. And then let's get a little bit more of that. And maybe a little bit up here. Okay. And then we're gonna go in this way. Oh, that's a lot more yellowish than I really wanted over here. We're gonna take some of that out. Oh, but I might leave a trace of it. Yeah, I might leave a trace of it. So I am trying to leave a lot of granulation here, which is why I'm putting down these really, really wet washes. And then I will hopefully come back and refine some of the edges and stuff, but hopefully I can do that while having a lot of this just be the crazy granulation that's already in it. Yeah, I am using one of the grips. It wants to be varnished. These grips get kind of slimy tacky from moisture. So it wants to be varnished, but I haven't gotten around to that. Other than that, the grips are great. They're also around some of the brushes that I happen to be wanting to use. So I like the grips. I haven't gotten around to painting to varnishing them, which would be helpful. Stephen, you haven't used watercolor ground much, have you? Watercolor ground, yeah. So my issue that I'm running into today that I only just kind of theorized about prior to today, prior to just this moment, is I am really starting to really enjoy the freedom that Aquaboard has given me in terms of being able to throw down a lot of paint without having to worry about how that'll fit in with like a lot of paint, and not just a lot of water, which I already did to a huge extent, but throw down a lot of pigment and let it kind of go crazy, and just not worry about like, oh, it's in the wrong spot, or like it's going to get too dark or whatever, because I can lift it right back out. And that is this kind of magical feeling. Like, it's kind of great. I love it. But the problem is, well, actually I have two problems. The first one is Aquaboard is a commercial product that's made by one company and one company only. I've not tried cutting it. Maybe I can cut it down, but I certainly can't get it larger than the largest size it's sold, which is the size of a full-size watercolor sheet. So for my even larger pieces, that's not an option. And also, it's American. So, I've just been trying to figure out just now if I want a watercolor option, a surface option that allows me some of that flexibility to scrape away that and lift right off. So I know I have very limited watercolor ground experience, but in my experience it is somewhat more lifting, so that's promising. And also theoretically, especially if I just, troweled it on and then sanded it down to whatever finish I ultimately wanted, I could get it to behave more like I could get it to where there's enough of a surface that I could not only lift but also scrape away, and that might be an option. Kind of a pain in the butt one, because I prefer to have someone else prepare my stuff, although I suppose that's the sort of thing that I could get co-ops to do. But yeah, also, fuck, ampersand is American. I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check. I could just be assuming. Maybe it's not. I have worked with gouache, largely when the main time that I've worked with gouache on larger pieces is when I did go too dark with my transparent watercolor. The truth is, I do really like largely working light to dark. I just also like the ability to completely reverse, to take a rag and delete whole areas, to rework things, and to add, like, scrape in bright highlights. And gouache isn't quite that. Like, you can work dark to light, but you can't really reverse. You can't really hit undo. And when you're working dark to light, like, you have to be aware of, like, shades of white, shades of whatever, how your white is going to shift your, how mixing in white is going to shift, you know, shift your colors. They're going to be bluer. You're going to have to focus on that. It is not the same as, once you start introducing opaque layers, it becomes a different medium. Hi, Jill. Nice to see you. How are you? Also, Jill, you're the one I send sketchbooks to. Would you rather have one sketchbook sent to you now or 2 sketchbooks sent to you in like a week or 2? Okay, first of all, let's see who owns ampersand. Yeah, it's in Texas. Crap. It's probably easier for me to send 2 sketchbooks, but if you're itching to get a sketchbook because you haven't had one in a while, I totally understand. Been there, and can get you a sketchbook. All right. Well, in that case, I'll probably wait until next week. I think next week I'm gonna probably live stream the sketch in Paolo's sketchbook. I think I'm here next week, yeah. I was just saying, it's a little bit difficult for me coming up. I am not always in the city with my studio. There's a bunch of reasons why I am going to be away for a while. Yeah, okay, whatever, we're gonna do this. I want to get more of this in here. Jill, have you painted much with watercolor ground? Yeah, I'll probably ship them out, like, not this coming Monday, but the one after. And I can probably print shipping labels from home, so I'll just drop them off in a local post office box. But yeah, I have 2 sketchbooks, and I will happily what can you tell me about the lifting and scraping ability? Have you, when you've applied watercolor ground, I know that some sources recommend applying it and then sanding it. And did you do that, or did you just paint it on and then work on it? So the reason I ask is I have started painting my last few paintings. All right, I'll do this again. One moment. I put it on a couple of thin layers applied with a credit card for a smoother surface, and I've tried it with thin layers by brush for a rougher surface. Okay, cool. But you applied it with whatever you applied it once, and then you painted directly on it. Because I've done that for like 2 pieces. At one point I got a really large wood panel, and I applied watercolor ground directly on the wood. Oh, maybe I could gesso underneath, sand the gesso, then apply or even just a paper. Fascinating. Okay, so my little quandary is as follows. I have recently, in the past couple months, been experimenting with ampersand aqua board. I have quite a number of panels in different sizes that I got a little while ago, but I only got to really experimenting with them recently. Ampersand aqua board has a slightly rougher texture than is really my ideal, but I've come to really love a couple of things about it. The first one is that it's really allowed me to embrace throwing down a whole bunch of like really juicy, pigment-rich washes, letting them do their thing, and then if it turns out that the thing isn't how I want it, it is pretty easy to take a wet cloth and you can like wash it right off. You know, if this painting, I turned out I didn't like this painting, I could probably run the thing under water and just scrub it off. So there's a delete button that doesn't exist usually when you're working with paper. Even paper on panel, like, you know, there's a limited amount of scrubbing that you can do, and I have really come to embrace the freedom that comes from not ever having to worry about, oh, did I put this paint in the right place? And was this too dark? If it's too dark, I can always lighten it. I can always just wipe it away. So that's neat, and then I can also scrape in really fine highlights, which is really nice for painting in like you know, I don't like using sorry. Damn it. Masking fluid is the worst. I've been experimenting also with, you know, different media, like oil paint. I really do like some of the more reworkable aspects of other media, but there's a lot that I love about watercolor. I love the flow. I love working light to dark. I love how portable it is. I love how it is both like infinitely rewettable, and I can work on a piece over months, but also it dries instantly enough that I don't have to wait weeks to, you know, do the next step. And more than anything, I love the, like, oh my goodness, is this ever the easiest cleanup in the world? I was just saying, like, I have one little oil painting that I've ever done in this studio over here, and my studio has way more oil mess than watercolor mess, even though I've been in the studio painting watercolor for regularly, like all the time, for the past 6-7 years. I hate that because it makes... Yeah, so I had that experience the first time I used watercolor ground, and it's what turned me off of watercolor ground. But I also had some similar thoughts about ampersand aquaboard, and I'm coming to kind of love it. Like, it's not for everything, but there's for some of the subjects I paint and the way I paint them, it actually really works really well. So I could just use aquaboard. Aquaboard is great, but there's two problems with aquaboard. First, it's a commercial product that only comes in set sizes, and maxes out at 22 by 30. So we're back to the watercolor paper problem where, okay, and if I want to paint something larger or different dimensions, then what? And then my second issue is, gee, sorry, I know you're American, but I'm not buying American. Ampersand is a Texas company. I really don't want to buy American. Yeah. So I wish I could buy Canadian or European, ideally Canadian. And if that means I need to make my own panels, I need to make my own panels. But I was thinking, like, oh, maybe if I do a watercolor ground and then I sand it down to whatever texture I want. Hi, buddy. Is that a silly girl? You want outside, you want walkies. I will give you walkies later. We're gonna go big walkies. We're gonna go Toronto. Yeah, we're gonna go on a train. But later. Okay? Yeah. Sorry, I need to explain to my dog that we are gonna go... I definitely put down a layer of acrylic gesso first and then apply watercolor ground to raw wood. Well, not even necessarily raw wood. I mean, masonite, probably. Yeah, like I'd probably just get masonite. So maybe I will try priming some surfaces with watercolor ground. Maybe watercolor ground over gesso. And sand in between layers. Maybe I'll make someone else sand in between layers. That sounds horrifying. Dude, I don't even want to buy American currently. Yeah, nobody does. Well, sorry. I guess lots of people do. But ew. The latest news, I guess. Well, sorry. The latest trade news, which, like, honestly, on the scale of things, like, it comes up because I'm Canadian. So that apparently we've got a 35% tariff coming again. To be honest, I don't even care about the tariffs. That's not really the point, but apply with a credit card for a smoother application. Well, I mean, I'm probably applying, like, where this is most relevant is on really huge panels. So I don't know, like maybe a roller? I'll do some research. I also feel like, gee, dang, maybe I should have gotten some, maybe I should have gotten some, co-op students, because I'm gonna need some co-op students to do this for me, because I can't prime my own panels. Or a scraper ruler, whatever, flat edge. I mean, I also have... Yes, Power Sanders. Hi, buddy. Can you please... Shh, down. Good girl. Yeah, some kind of flat edge maybe. I mean, I'll look into it. I guess I'll just do some research about how people who have done this, because I'm sure I'm not the only person on Earth. But maybe that's ultimately the answer. I probably will end up buying at least one more order of the ampersand stuff, because this is really working for me, and they're in Texas. I mean, I'll buy from a Canadian art supplier at least, but yeah, so for the record, like, I know that the news goes on about, like, oh, Canadians are boycotting because of tariffs, and, like, yeah, so for just in case anyone is listening and not aware, message from a Canadian: we don't care about the tariffs. The tariffs are, like, the last of our concerns. I mean, they're annoying, but it's not, whatever, like, tariffs come and go, we don't really care that much. That will likely affect our finances, but that is not why Canadians are boycotting. We are concerned about threats to our sovereignty. We are concerned about people who get scooped up at the border and disappear. And we're concerned about human rights. That's what Canadians are concerned about. That is definitely the start of it. So the start, like, people are concerned about human rights, but there's not as much of a, for all that the divest movement exists about Israel, for all that, were supportive of, we're not gonna buy from Russia. All kinds of, like, there's all sorts of human rights violations that we ultimately just don't don't take as seriously. And so I think Canadians are looking to news from the South and being rather horrified right now about just like the scale of human rights violations. But the very, very united people-led, like, this is not an order from above. It's not like our prime minister, may have advised at one point, oh yeah, buy Canadian, but nobody cared the last time he did that. The reason why Canadians are not buying American, the reason why there's this grassroots movement started with annexation threats. We are a sovereign nation. We like our country being our country. There are things that we prefer about Canada than the US. We don't want to be American. We're Canadian. So definitely annexation threats were the start of it, but I think that part of what's happened is the annexation threats made us tune in and look a little closer and got us, I think a lot of us, maybe more horrified, maybe more it's not really more horrified as in it's any more horrifying. It's just we're looking more. We are paying more attention. We always have to pay attention because we're a tiny country and our neighbors are big. But we're paying more attention to human rights violations, to so for example, there's a huge movement in Canada to buy Canadian and we avoid American products, but there's still some amount of, yes, some stuff just keeps, like, we understand that there's some amount of trade that just keeps happening. Like, we can buy peanut butter that's made by a Canadian company in Canada, as in it's processed in Canada, it's packaged in Canada, but we also recognize that, like, yeah, but we're not seeking out the, like, one of two farms that produce peanuts in Ontario to get our peanut butter. We're just getting peanuts. We're getting peanut butter. Where do we think the peanuts come from? Obviously, it's America. We know that a lot of our services, a lot of our food supply, a lot of our whatever is so integrated that, yes, no matter what, we are still in some way, even while, checking every label at the grocery store, which is honestly what most Canadians do now. Even despite that, we're still integrated with the US economy to a huge extent. But because we're watching, because we're, taking that time at the grocery store, means that we're much more tuned in to, like, oh shit, people are getting scooped up at the border. Like, not, Canadians is new, because, we used to kind of, I mean, in my lifetime, in my recollection, there was a time when we didn't even need a passport to cross. Right? We could cross on, oh, well, here's my Ontario health card. Here's my driver's license. I'll continue to buy oranges or lettuce, things like that. Yeah, I'm not buying oranges, but, like, again, exactly, like, everyone has a different tolerance. Where, like, I also buy things from restaurants, and I know that there are people who will go to a sandwich shop and have the restaurant workers check the labels and where was the where was this cucumber grown? Oh, this is an American cucumber. I don't want cucumber on my sandwich. I'm not at that point, right? Like, I've stopped buying oranges. I buy other citrus from other places or buy other fruit. Come wintertime, yeah, we'll see. Oh yeah, I used to come across with my driver's license. Loves that ease of access. Right, so like we are not used to being challenged at the border. And so it's especially horrifying looking at some of the news about like Canadians being detained, Canadians being harassed. But it's not just Canadians, right? Like, because we're tuned in, because we started watching with like out of the blue, oh shit, like what are these annexation threats? I think we are therefore, more tuned in, more aware of like, shit, y'all have an Auschwitz in a swamp, in an environmentally protected swamp in Florida, and you're selling merch, and you built it with like, it really does, it changes the whole, like, as recently as December, I was applying to opportunities, residencies, shows, etc. across the border. And more than just that, my assumption had been, even when applying to stuff in Canada, I have a service dog. And service dog law in Canada is confusing because it is controlled largely by the provinces. Each province has different rules, and then travel within, like, between provinces is a mess, where those rules don't correspond to any one province. So it becomes difficult to get my service dog approved to fly from province A to province B. So even when applying to stuff within Canada, I was, up until December, applying to things with not a worry about the Canadian Transportation Authority, because I knew that if the Canadian Transportation Authority gave me any grief, if I had trouble booking my flight within Canada, all I had to do was hop down to Chicago and fly through the US. I'm not going to do that. If I have to drive, if I have to hire someone to drive me from province A to province B to go to an event in a different province, that's what I'm going to do, because I'm not entering US airspace. And I'm especially not entering US airspace with my service dog. Not happening. And so, and like, that's a hard line where, when it comes to buying art supplies, it's like, oh, I'd rather not, but I might. And so some of it is literally like, there's concerns about borders, there's concerns about human rights, that we are way more tuned into. Yes, because of the sovereignty threats. Like, maybe without them, I might have gone a little longer before concluding that, like, not attending any conferences over there. Not crossing that border. But it's wild to think that, like, yeah, I mean, it used to be you don't even need ID, but like you don't need a passport to cross, and that wasn't that long ago, and that even in the last months, it was a thing that I just assumed as like, yeah, well, if I if Canada gives me trouble, I can always just hop down. Like, yeah, no. No, 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Alright, let's take this. We're gonna... So here I can just lift this right out. Ta-da! Gone! Yeah, Stephen can comment. I mean, I think we're all different, but it is a, like I've never seen Canadians so united on anything. We don't get along, we don't agree on things. We're not much for, like, big displays of national pride either. Like, that's not really a Canadian thing that happens very much. I want to add some. Wait. Okay, that's too much. Too much. Too much. But yeah, if you're in the US, I mean, I'm really, really sorry for what your government is putting you through, and I hope that they come to their senses soon. You're probably not getting my tourism back, no matter what, for some time, possibly ever, for a variety of reasons. But I do hope that things turn around, and also understand, like, yeah, I mean, in the world of competing priorities, supporting local, for example, is an equal thing. You know, you want to support your local businesses, even if, you know, your government isn't. It also, you know, it's not. The impact is different if you're boycotting local versus, like, the noticeable impact of another country's trade just suddenly cratering, of tourism cratering. But yeah, I mean, it's also like, oh shit, suddenly we have to worry about our sovereignty, which is that's new and different. Which that would be bad enough. But then there's the additional, okay, well, because we're watching that, we're then very likely to notice, oh, shoot, when the US has a tiff with, when Trump has a tiff with the Ukrainian president, they disable the guidance systems on the F-16s that got sent to Ukraine. Well, shit. What about our jets? We just ordered a bunch of F-35s. Will our jets get disabled? Complicated. But the planet is beautiful. We live in a beautiful world, even if humans are disappointing me. Bye, Steven. Okay, I'm gonna go refill my water. I will be right back. Hi, Empress. I know you want to go, but we have to wait for the train. So I'm going to Toronto this weekend. This is part of why, if you're over on Discord, I've been doing this a lot, and I don't know the next little while how feasible it is going to be to keep up any kind of weekly live stream. I've not been great about it for a while, but was hoping, as my various chronic health issues seem to be clearing up, that that I'd be starting live streams back up. I don't know what that's going to look like, and it's probably not going to be on Friday afternoons, because that seems, and kind of unlikely that I'm going to be able to keep up that particular schedule. But regardless of that, this week I'm going to Toronto for not just my family situation and health reasons, but I am visiting the Toronto Outdoor Art Fair. I'm pivoting what I focus my career on away from like small illustrations and more towards fine art and selling original art and prints. And my local avenues for selling at like local art fairs are they don't really support my things that I want to sell at this price point that I want to sell them at. There's just, people aren't going to those events shopping for art. It's long been suggested that some of these bigger art fairs are probably where I need to focus next. And so I am going to be checking that out, doing some market research, and see if I want to sign up for that next year. yes, I love my mixing palettes are always their own art form. One day maybe I should I don't know, do something about that. Or not, because I need to focus. I find it's really easy in art to get pulled in all different directions. Oh, you could sell this. Oh, you could run this class. Oh, you could this, that, the other. And especially in the context of, like, I'm coming out of a really long stretch where I was not okay. Had some chronic health issues that, it turns out, I mean, I have chronic pain, that I can't get away from, but I had some other issues that, unfortunately, were caused by the meds that I was on that were helping me with the chronic pain, in terms of just, like, mental capacity. And so those are, I've been off of those meds for a while, those are subsiding, and that's all lovely, fine and good and wonderful. What's up, Ember? What's up, Embers? Sorry, but as my health issues are subsiding, as I'm coming out of that, it's like trying to refocus, trying to build up, and a lot of it's like the temptation to, like, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this, very high. I cannot do all the things, and since I have to restart stuff anyway, it's kind of the right time to take a look at exactly what I am doing and what it is that I want to restart. Oh. Apparently I ran this too far back. Okay, so I can just lift this out. Okay, we'll deal with that later. Hello, my Empress.
stream?
Yep.
Okay, have fun. Hello, stream. And hello, dog.
She's desperate to go for walkies, but I'm taking her on a train later, so I'm not.
Yes, well, I was originally going to ask whether you wanted me to walkies her,
But you've got some exciting stuff, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I know
No.
I'm probably intruding.
Nope, that's fine. Jordan got a graphics card from his brother.
Yeah, I haven't installed it yet.
You haven't? You're just like
I'm just
riding high.
Hmm?
You're just riding high.
Maybe? I don't know. I'm feeding it Dota. That's what I do.
Okay. Okay. Wait. I thought you were gonna go to
I was.
Canada Computers, but you're not.
Yes, but then it said brother invited me to play video games.
Gotcha. Okay. I need to scrape that away. This way. Sorry, which sounds really cool. I think I missed what sequence things came in. Jordan's graphics card? He's really excited about it. It's a very, very generous gift from his brother. He's been wanting a graphics. He's been wanting to upgrade his graphics card for a while. But you see, graphics cards are expensive because AI and Bitcoin. So he's been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and his brother got him a much better graphics card than he was ever going to get him for himself. Yeah, because he's awesome and very, very generous. Oh. What's up, Ember? What do I do with the Ember? Yeah, it's a really cool art fair. It's all artists, not like there's no galleries. So there's art fairs that are all galleries, there's art fairs that are all artists, and then there's art fairs that have a mix. And I don't object to working with galleries at all. But to be honest, I've not prioritized getting gallery representation because that is a... I mean, I'm sure it's a frustrating thing. Like I did a little bit of tiny bit of digging there, and it was frustrating, even the tiny bit that I did, in terms of like it's a lot of writing and not hearing back, and applications and what have you, and there's an artist here on YouTube, Tim Packer, who is also, he's fairly local to me. He is an oil painter, and you know, his channel, he covers a lot of like art business stuff, although he does also maintain a very prolific painting career, which I believe actually does like it is the majority of his income. So it's not like he's, you know, there was the whole thing about, you know, is our YouTube artists a scam? Is this a pyramid scheme where you get artists who end up making their career out of telling you how to make your career as an artist, right? But they're not actually making a career as an artist. They're making a career as a business advice. And ultimately their advice ends up boiling down to, well, maybe you can offer business advice like me, which is not what we all want to do. But this guy seems like his main income, his main business is in fact art, which is nice to see. And he talked about his experience at the, I mean, he called it the Toronto Art Expo, but it's the Toronto Outdoor Art Fair. There is no such thing as the Toronto Art Expo. And he was talking about, like, well, that's how actually he got into gallery representation, is because you will have much better luck if you go and you show yourself and you prove yourself to be, you know, here, I'm an artist, I produce, I sell. And then, yes, then you get galleries who are interested in, like, oh, we would like to sell your work too, and you can figure out some, you know, non-exclusive thing where you can have your work sold by galleries, and that is great, but also seems like a little bit more approachable than trying to, you know, oh, well, I'm not going to try to sell my work myself. I'm only going to try to go sell through galleries who then go to, you know, gallery art fairs. Anyway, I've heard from more than just one guy on YouTube that for my local market, for where I live, there's a you know, a few big art events that are, you know, within the day trip range for me, and that's probably one of the bigger ones. So if I'm looking to sell artwork, like sell original art, which ultimately, like, yeah, ideally I would like to be selling artwork. It can be original, it can be illustrations, it can be whatever, but ideally I would like to be selling artwork, and I think I'm more interested in painting more developed paintings, and really pushing myself to what I can do than becoming a printer for a variety of reasons. One of them just being, you know, as wild as that is, it actually seems like that's more viable. Like, there's more of a future in the fine art market than there is in the realm of AI and the whatever. Like, you're not going to replace, you know, art for art's sake. You're not going to replace humans being humans, but you can replace, like, commercial art. And so, whereas I had previously figured, oh, well, getting into illustration is a more approachable, less elitist, less whatever path than, say, fine art. I think that you know, my prospects are a little bit better in actually fine art than they are in illustration right now. Anyway, I do have some friends who have shown there. I think I might actually know some people who are showing there this year. So before I go, like, I'll go to the fair tomorrow, traveling to Toronto today, staying at my parents'. And I will make sure to check it out and see the plan and see if there's any particular people who I know who I want to visit. But in general, just want to go and see, because I have been told by multiple people that, like, yeah, if you want to sell art, you kind of have to, like, big challenge is you have to be where the buyers are. You have to you know, you can't expect to sell art at a garage sale. I mean, sorry, you can sell art, but like not at any kind of you know, price point. Okay, I am going to no, I'm still gonna work on this a little bit more. Yeah. How are we doing? So let's see, if I wanted to have, oh, that's still a little wet, isn't it? Okay. That's... I need to very quickly step to the washroom. I will be right back. Bye, Jill. Actually, in fact, I think I'm actually just going to wrap this up here because I do have other stuff to do. So I may do a little bit more painting, but I am probably reaching the end of where I should be streaming because I should focus on all the other things I have to do before I leave. So anyway, thank you everyone for joining. I don't know whether I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of live streams coming up. I probably will do one next week, but then in the coming weeks, I don't know, because I've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.